In today's video, we're talking about how you can write time travel. So time travel can be presented in a number of different ways. Time travel can involve your character actually traveling back to a specific time, a historical time, or they may be traveling to the future, or your character may be time traveling within a certain amount of time in their modern timeline, where they might be going back in time to try and change events or fix things. So time travel can be presented in a number of different ways, and today we're going to talk about how you can more easily write time travel, because it can get pretty complicated once you have your character going back in time and changing things. It can be more difficult to understand how the current timeline would look once your character has made some adjustments. So let's talk about how you can write time travel in an effective way in your story, whether you're creating a manga, a comic, or a light novel. So first of all, you want to decide on the number of timelines. So when your character is time traveling, the first thing you need to consider is how many timelines are you actually going to have. So in most time travel series, to make it a lot more easier, there'll usually be just two different timelines where your character either goes back into the past and then you have the modern timeline, or they go into the future and you have the modern timeline. So that is a common way of doing it because it makes it a lot more simpler. The more timelines you have, the more complicated the story may be. Or you could also have a time loop system where your character has a save point of sorts and then goes back to that save point and then changes events. So you can see the differences in the timelines, but you don't have the complex butterfly effect that you might see from other time travel scenarios. But then you also have the more complex time travel where your character may time travel back to multiple points, change events, which ultimately change their current timeline. So you really need to think about what kind of time travel you're going to have and how this would influence how many different timelines you would have. So if you're creating a series like Steins Gate, obviously Steins Gate gets really complicated because they go to so many different timelines, and with every decision they make, the time changes. It can be very helpful to sort of write each timeline or create a diagram of each timeline and give them each a name to help you understand which timeline your character is on if you intend to have multiple timelines in your story. We'll be talking more about how to create a timeline diagram later in this video. Now, when your characters use their time travel, it can create certain effects in the story that maybe they had not initially planned. So when you are writing your time travel, especially when your character is traveling to multiple points in time, you want to understand the causes and effects, because with every choice your character makes, this has the ultimate potential to change the future world that they know. So you want to ensure that you write down the actions your character takes and think about how this may influence the current time that they are living in. So in time travel series where they time travel to a specific time in the past, there's a lot of instances where the character may take their future knowledge into that time. But by introducing knowledge that has not already been discovered at that point in time, it can change the way the future is presented. So it's really interesting when you see that kind of time travel. But this can also apply even if you're creating time travel within a specific point of time. Maybe the entire story is set in the character's modern day, but they keep going back in time to try and change events and change the future. And so with every decision they make, there is always the cause, the decision and the choice that they make, but this always results in an effect. And sometimes this effect might be what they want, but in most cases, that effect may be something that they had not initially planned for. A common example that you may see in a lot of anime, manga, and light novels is that your character goes back in time to try and save the life of the person they care about, only to go back into the future and realize that because of their choices and that butterfly effect, things ended up turning out in a way they had not initially planned. So they continue to go back to try and fix those mistakes, and those ultimately lead to more challenges in the current time in the story. So this is where it's really important to understand that cause and effect and know by what choices your character makes how this influences their current time. You also want to know the time travel device. So when your character manages to go back in time, how did they do it? Now, usually this time travel device can look like a few things. Now, this could be a literal machine, or it could be an object that acts as the machine, like a door, a car, a photograph, for example. So by time machine, we're talking about an actual object or device that can be used to transport the character to a certain time. Now, another common time travel device is a time loop. There may be a specific point or an amount of time that your character can loop back to, and so this time loop is another way of transporting your character. Maybe they have certain abilities, or there's some other cause in the story that causes them to be able to have this time loop ability, but your character may be able to travel back in time, like there's a save point, and your character can constantly go back to this save point, change things, and then see how the events play out from there. And then you can also have a time travel device be like a portal. Now this may be presented differently than an actual time travel object, some kind of location, or it may not even be obvious to the character. For example, if you look at a series like Inuyasha, the well is the time travel portal, so Kagome goes back through time by traveling via the well. And as mentioned, it may not necessarily be obvious. Maybe your character is in one timeline, dives under the water, and looks up, and suddenly they are in the next time. With this particular time travel device, it might be random or surprising to your character. When creating the time travel device, you don't really need to explain everything. You just need to explain enough to make the time travel device have purpose in your story. So if you are creating more of a time machine device, you don't need to explain all the reasons why this works. You just need to make it make sense to the readers and the characters in your story. A lot of these time travel devices can also be combined in different ways too. So if you like the sound of maybe a time machine type of device where your character uses an object, maybe this object is able to take them in a sort of time loop. So when they see a particular object, they are able to go back into that point in time, like Life is Strange and the photograph time travel ability, where she can time travel via the photographs. So consider how you can use normal everyday things in a creative way to be able to show the time travel in your story. Now let's talk about time travel limitations, because time travel itself can be a very powerful ability. If your characters can go back and fix their mistakes or change things, this gives them a great deal of power over their future. So there should always be limits when it comes to writing time travel, and these limits can include things like weakness if they have time traveled too long or too far back. They might get nauseous after they have time traveled initially. They might get injured in some way if they time travel back too far. Or the most common reason why there might be a limitation to the time travel is that they end up messing up the timelines if they do it too often. That in itself can be a limitation, because your character may end up being scared to continue going back in time if they believe that it might end up causing more problems than it's worth. So when it comes to writing the time travel in your story, think about what problems or struggles it may cause in the story, whether these struggles, and usually these struggles or challenges will be something the characters did not initially intend, but now they may need to go back and change the way they think or change different things in the timeline because they accidentally messed up in some way or made the wrong choice, ultimately affecting their time and all the other characters around them. It's a lot of responsibility. In order to make time travel easier to write, it's really helpful to plot the timelines. So let's talk a bit about how you can write a time travel diagram to make it easier to plot the timelines in your story. Draw each timeline as a vertical line with the future at the top and the past at the bottom. You might want to label each timeline as well. You could simply write timeline 1, 2, or 3 if that is simpler for you as well. On each timeline, make notes of significant changes on each of the timelines and then show with a dotted or coloured line where your character time travels back through each timeline. And this can be a much easier way to show visually where your character goes on each timeline, what changes they make, and how this may affect the future. So time travel is really interesting to write, and although it can be complicated, when it's written right, it can create a really interesting story that your readers will enjoy too. Showing how your characters make certain decisions in the story can already be complicated enough, but when your character puts time travel in the mix, it means that their decisions have a lot more dire consequences, and they'll need to really think about their decisions before making them. Because with one choice that they make in a different timeline, it may affect the way that they live their current everyday life. Thank you so much for watching my video today, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of time travel series you're creating, or what time travel series you enjoy. I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure others would love to hear your thoughts too. Visit my website midnightscross.com for resources, templates, and workbooks that can help you to level up your story. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!